was Michael like?
Man, Mike, it hurts me every day to think about it because he was the coolest dude you probably would ever met. And he was, like, the biggest misconception was Mike was just this Hollywood character.
Right.
But he wasn't. He was the simplest guy. And he knew when to turn it on, obviously, because his generation, he knew what a superstar is supposed to look and feel like in public.
Right.
So when come public, he turned it on.
Right.
Like, he knew, like, Mike was a G, like, he get it, right?
Right.
But behind closed doors as a person, man, he used to have me crying, like, so funny, super cool, just a great, great heart, man, pure soul, man.
So you remix I Want to Be Starting Something. How did that project come about?
Actually, the project came about because I received a call one day. Me and Mike actually had the same attorney, but I didn't know at the time that we shared attorneys. And then, you know, my attorney called me. He was like, Mike wants you to come on board and, you know, and produce in his new re-release for the Thriller. I was like, man, stop playing. Michael Jackson? He said, yes, Michael Jackson. So, but he started laughing after he said it, so I thought he was joking. And at that time, I'm like, man, I ain't got time for this, so I hung up the phone. He calls me back with Mike on the phone on three-way. He said, remember what I told you? Mike is on the phone. Hi, Mike, talk to Con. And he's like, hey, Con, how are you? With the voice.
Right.
I said, oh, these niggas is bullshit. Let me hang on the phone again. I ain't got time for this. So he calls back.
Don't say it on the phone.
Right, he calls back. He said, no, it's me, seriously, it's me. I said, no, it's not. He said, yes, it's me. He started telling me everything about myself that I forgot about. It was so interesting because when I flew out to Vegas to meet him, I didn't understand. It made me realize how and why he was so big. First of all, he was a music guy, like he was a fan of the art and the people involved in it. Because even how he explained and kind of narrated his story about me from his point of view, he made me look at myself different. But then more than anything, I started to realize how easy it was to work with him. Because out of every artist I ever worked with, Mike was probably the easiest person to work with. If I would have asked him to bark on the record, he would have barked on the record. Only because he believed in what I did. And he wanted me to be able to coach him.
Right.
To do, so if the collaboration felt like a real collaboration. You know what I mean? So it was just amazing. He had no ego about nothing. He was willing to try any and everything to make the best product he could.
You were the last, Michael Jackson's last song, Hold My Hand.
Yeah.
You worked with him. Whitney, Like I Never Left. You worked.
I was the last to work on her as well, too, before she passed, which is crazy.
When you look, I understand that because, look, you work with a lot of guys from G's and all these guys, but you understand what Whitney represents. You 100%. Understand what Mike represents.
Absolutely.
You're talking about the upper. There's levels to this music thing now.
100%.
And you're talking about Michael, he's at the top of the food chain.
Right.
You're talking about Whitney, she's at the top of the food chain.
Right.
And you were the last to work with them.
Yeah, that was the only one that I was right in motion of working with before he left was Prince. He's the only one I missed. That would have sealed my legacy for that.
I'm trying to think. I think he had a concert in Atlanta. And the way he did his concerts, you could only get 2 tickets, but you had to show up at the box office with the credit card in hand. Okay, obviously I'm not going to wait in no line. And the tickets that were like $100, people were selling for like $2,000, $3,000.
Right.
And I'm like, nah, hell nah. It was really the last concert he ever did. Did it at the Fox. And he's one of the only guys that I didn't get an opportunity to see, and he's one of my favorite artists. And so I understand, obviously I wasn't gonna get it, but just to hear him.
Right, right.
You get an opportunity to work with Michael, work with some of the people, work with Whitney, and to say, I work with Prince, because now, again, you talk about the upper effort.
See, Prince was a little bit different, and the reason why it was harder to block it, get into him, was because he himself was a writer and a producer.
Correct.
He created his own music.
Right.
That's why it was would have been such an honor
for
him to go outside that space
of
himself and experiment with someone else.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it was a matter of just getting close enough to him, but just let him hear
some of the things that you.
I promise you, if he would have heard it, he'd have been in. He'd have been locked.
Right.
But the one thing about Prince, he always had that mystique. That's one thing I actually admired about that generation. Superstars wasn't easy to get to.
Right.
And they made it hard. So if you finally did get to him, you had to make it count.
Right.
Today, you go to the mall, you seeing everybody. You go to the club, you seeing everybody.
Everybody, there's somebody.
Right.
The access to these guys now is a lot different than what it was then.
What it was.
You're probably you weren't bumping into Michael at the club unless it was Studio 54. You weren't bumping into Prince. You weren't bumping into those guys unless it was a very, very special occasion.
Absolutely.
Now, hey.
Oh no, yeah.
You go out in Atlanta, you probably bump into Lil Baby, Lil Durk. You go bump, you go bump it all.
You gonna bump into all of them.
Yeah.
You gonna bump into all of them.
I'm looking at what was it like to work with Mike in the studio?
Oh man, that was the best experience ever. Like Mike was the first artist that I worked with at that time that didn't need no auto-tune. He didn't need no auto-tune. But I had to do it because I just wanted to see auto-tune on him. So I gotta just a little bit. But
so when you hear people say, well, I don't know how, because I hear people say talent and singing.
Right.
Okay, if you want to say talent, I think Prince is obviously because he can play.
Oh no, talent,
guitar.
hands down. He does everything
right.
with his eyes closed.
But when they would see, people miss when they talk about Chris Brown and Michael.
Right.
See, now y'all got to miss me. I don't even want to talk to y'all no more. I ain't got nothing to say.
No, let me give you another perspective on that. In this day and age, the only person, in my opinion, that could have achieved just as great as a legacy as Mike, to me, would have been Chris Brown. I just believe that Chris Brown wasn't surrounded by the circle of creative people that Mike was surrounded by.
Wow.
Because Chris got the talent.
Wow.
He just needed the direction.
Right.
Right? So imagine if Chris had Mike's team.
Right.
Just imagine that. It would be something different.
And that's big.
But Chris is like he got bloods around him. He got little gangbangers around him.
Right.
He don't have the guidance.
Right.
He's smart, but he's smart according to what this generation smart attracts.
Right.
Okay. For me to survive in this era, I got to keep certain things around me, certain people around me, just so I can keep getting it going.
Right.
But if he was able to delete all that and say, look, I'm going to focus on being the greatest entertainer ever, Chris has the opportunity.
It's too late now. It's too late now.
Yeah.
But I think
that's why everybody love you though, cause you so
too late.
Boy.
Ain't nobody selling no 100 million albums. Ain't
No.
nobody do that again. That's over. That's
but
over.
But
now you got the streaming. So now you do. I don't know really how streaming work. Do you get a quarter? You get 50 cents? You get a dime for how many streams you get? I don't really know how that works.
Right.
But I mean, he seems to be doing unbelievable in that.
Oh yeah, he's killing it. He's killing it.
You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and become an official member of Club Shay Shay, where we do something before two something.